I know that you shot this film in Australia. Was there a reason why you wanted to shoot it back home or in Melbourne even?
I've shot a lot of my films in Australia, even though they're often set in the US or in fictitious places. And I just like working there. It's just easier for me to work there for various reasons. You know, there's a whole logistical aspect about when we make movies, we have to pick up and set up a house in some far-flung place in the world, which can be exciting, but it can also be a bit draining. And for me, I just want to focus on the movie. And it seemed like if there's a reason to go to a location, then do it. But this one, I felt we could convince people that it was set where we're supposed to have shot it, and I feel like we've done it. And the technology is letting us more and more shoot films anywhere and then set them in appropriate places. In Knowing's case, there's a bunch of scenes in Manhattan that we basically put Nick into a Manhattan environment. He was not there. We went and shot buildings, etc., and put him into these environments. And it's very hard to tell now when you look at the finished film.
I have to nerd out just a little bit. I know that the camera is different from what maybe you've worked.
It's a digital camera, yeah.
To have digital technology to shoot a big movie like this, did you feel like you were beta testers at one point?
A little bit, yeah. And I knew we'd go through that, but it's the way of the future. I mean, having now had the trial by fire, I'm not going to go back. I'm sticking with digital, and with Red in particular, which is a really fantastic camera. And I just like the look of it. You know, it has this sort of rich, lush, grainless quality. It's almost three-dimensional. It can almost feel like you can reach out and touch the actors, and I really like that quality. And for me, Knowing is a film that I wanted a reality to, and sometimes people think that means grainy and gritty and whatever, but I didn't want that. I wanted it to look quite lush, but to capture an immediacy, and it seemed like the digital format was the way to go with it.
One of the more dynamic sequences is this plane crash sequence, and I'm just wondering, how did this camera help you with shooting this? It would have been possible in the past to use a large camera to kind of do that sequence? Or
you could certainly. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't have shot the movie on film. You certainly could have shot it on film. It was an aesthetic decision that I made, but technically, because there's no grain in the footage, you can actually. It's very user-friendly in terms of CGI effects work, because you can zoom into small parts of the frame, and because there's no grain, you can't see it, and so when you're doing digital work and compositing, mixing CG elements with real explosions and real elements, it's actually a very sort of seamless technology to use, and so it did certainly help us in that particular instance.
Did it help also with the acting? Did Nick and Rose find that it was easier to are these cameras smaller? I don't really know what they look like. So
you wouldn't probably notice the difference if you're on the set. It looks like a film camera, and it's got all the big lenses and whatever we put on them to make them work. But one thing that it did certainly affect is. You can you don't need as many lights as you do with film. You can work with more available light and natural light, so that's a really good thing, because you don't have lights sticking out of every window and doorway in the set. So it's I like to create a reality for the actors and actually create a world for them. If I build a set, I put a ceiling on it and make it sort of sealed off so they feel like they're in a real room. And the less gear and stuff you've got everywhere, and the less it feels like a movie set, the happier I am. So the digital technology is actually allowing us to do that basically more and more.
The script, I'm assuming, was a really difficult sell. Why did it take so long for it to become into fruition? I mean, and when you took over it, how did you change? Were there things from the original screenplay that you kind of changed into?
I did a lot of work on the screenplay. It was about focusing. For me, the most important thing was to focus the thematics and the ideas behind the story and make them really clear, and also a lot of nitty-gritty of the story and how the plot develops, as you always do, and the characters. But I had a very specific idea with it, but it did take a while to do. I mean, I tend to do that with all my movies. I mean, people go, why do you take so long between movies? It's like, I'm working on them, but I just guess I work more slowly than than other people, perhaps, you know.
You are a director, because I went online and you know the blogs are talking about how you're a sci-fi favorite, and people.
Right.
Is there a pressure to kind of like come up with the goods, when you become somebody of admiration within this community of?
Look, people are very critical of your work, but I don't think any more so than if you were, Joe Bloggs who'd never done this genre before. I think it's a truly literate audience out there, and I think they know their stuff. And I mean, if I was not making films, I'd probably be posting on blogs and stuff and telling people what I thought of their films as well. So no, I mean, I think it's fine, and it's a great genre. I'm really happy that I'm making films at a time where the science fiction genre is an accepted genre to be working in. When I was a kid, there were very few science fiction films around, so. I think it's all good,
To watch a film where the world, I mean, I'm not giving anything away, but when you look at the trailers, it looks like it's a bit of an Armageddon film, and of course there's all these. Is this a good time to release a movie like this, or do you feel like...
You can ask me that in 2 weeks' time, I'll let you know.
Oh, yeah,
so,
right, okay.
Yeah.
But is there trepidation? I mean, in the sense that, do people want to see... I mean, there's a plane crash. I mean, there's all these things that are happening in the world around us, and so did you find that there was a lot of similarities with what's going on in the world with what you guys were shooting at the time?
Well, some of it's intentional, and some of it just is things happen, and look, there've always been disasters. There always will be, sadly, disasters. It's just facts of life, I think there's a great deal of interest in films that are possibly dealing with the end of the world, right now. And I think it's because we live in troubled times and people are genuinely concerned. But I think, for me, it's my movie's about hope. It's set in this dark world, but it's really about overcoming that quality. So I hope that's what people can get out of it in the end.
If you knew the fate of what's going on, would you want to know? Would you rather live a life of ignorance and not be prepared of impending death for everybody, or do you feel like your survival instincts would kick in and you would kind of figure something out to
I think I would not want to know, but I would eventually. My curiosity would get the better of me. I think if someone gave you an envelope with information in it that was crucial to your existence, I think most people would eventually succumb and open the envelope. That's my feeling. Though you'd try not to, basically, but in the end, I think you'd want to know. What
is surprising about this film is also it's really about parental instincts. I mean, when I was watching, Nicholas take care of his son, and
Yeah.
So was it was that one of the focuses on your end too, or did it kind of organically happen into this?
No,
that was the heart and soul.
No,
to
it's
me.
intentional. I mean, there's nothing about the film that just happened. I mean, I think it's partly what I spend all those years locked in a room doing, is trying to work out every little detail of the film so it all scans to me and it's saying philosophically what I wanted to do. It's about the cycle of life. That's why the film is about fathers and sons. It's about ongoing generations and the hope we pass down to our kids. So that core relationship with Nick's character and his son is crucial to the film. It's what the whole movie is about. And Nick's sort of quest for meaning is partly discovering that his role in life is to be a dad. That's his function. It sounds sort of simplistic, but when you see the film, you'll understand that that's kind of his kind of mission in the end, is to realise his role is to be a father, And then, of course, the movie's also about his relationship with his own father and the fact that is kind of an unfinished business sort of thing. They have unresolved aspects there. So that part of it is crucial to the sort of bigger ideas of the movie.
Then last quick question, and it's interesting to watch Nick go to play a character like that. Was it interesting for you to direct him in a situation where he's kind of outside of his own box of what we expect?
It is. It's a pleasure. It really is a pleasure when you're working with someone of Nick's ability, when you kind of, I spent a lot of time rehearsing and discussing what we're going to do, and then when you see him create this guy in front of the camera, it's a really exciting moment to see that happen, and then to sort of watch him steer his course through the movie was terrific.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
It's nice talking to you.